99% of golfers clear their hips in the downswing completely wrong because they are trying to do this, and that is clearing the hips with the right side. Having the right side have all this rotation, pushing it forward in effort to rotate it. But that's going to cause you, one, to slice the golf ball, to shank the golf ball, and to have extremely poor contact and low point control, where we see all the best players in the world do this, and they will be having the right side staying back, and then the left hip is what's going to be clearing and what's going to be opening up. And that is really where we get the good benefits from clearing the hips. The distance, the strike, the awesome rotation, all from clearing the left side, not the right side. So I'm going to show you a really good drill at the end of this video to be able to perfectly clear the hips with the left side of your hip. So let's dive into this a little bit deeper, because the better we understand this, the better we're going to be able to apply the drills after, and you're going to be able to apply this out on the golf course better. So when we have players who are really trying to clear the hips with the right side, they'll be pushing that right hip forward. And the first big thing that will happen quite often is something that a lot of players think happens when you clear the hips, only if you do it wrong like this, and that is getting stuck. So shooting your right hip forward is the only way to get stuck via opening and rotating your hips. Because if you get that right side shooting forward, and if your right side of the body doesn't move along with it, your upper body and your arms, you're going to see how my right arm is immediately going to get stuck behind my seam line. And from there, I've got all of a manner of things I could do to reorganize that. I could either keep the hand path, keep that right arm behind me there, and I'll hit some horrible little toe strikes, or I could try, which this will most likely be what you'll do, have that right arm fire into the golf ball to get it back in front of your body, shanks, slices, awful, awful shots. So clearing the hips doesn't make you stuck. Clearing the hips wrong with the right side makes you stuck. So moving the right hip forward. It's a horrible thing to do. So if I now start that downswing, clearing the hip movement with my left hip, so get the left hip going back, you're going to see how it's going to get extremely difficult, almost impossible, to get my arms stuck behind me. Because when I get that left hip going back, it puts my upper body into a bit of flexion. Because when left hip moves back, it forces that upper body down. And that will get the arms more in front of your pivot, to where then you could just continue to turn. Club's going to fall onto that golf ball perfectly for strike location. I don't have to reorganize anything. So for all you players, like I said, who get stuck in the downswing, it is not because you're clearing the hips too much. It's because you're clearing the hips with the right side. We need to have that left side being pushed back, and that will get upper body flexing down, get that club more in front of you, better on path, better strikes. Be awesome one to do. So before we get to that drill to really get this left side back, stop the right side moving forward, let's talk about early extension. Because yes, clearing the hips and trying to do it with your right side will cause you to early extend. So some of you may have noticed a little visual when I was describing the right hip moving forward before. You'll notice that when that right hip drives forward first, you're going to see how that trail heel lifts up off the ground. So you're going onto your toes on that right foot. Now that is extending the body. That's getting that right hip moving forward. And of course, we're going onto our toes. What does going onto our toes do? It makes you taller. Of course, going onto your toes makes you taller. So it's making that right side a lot taller there. Pelvis, like we said, sliding underneath. As you continue to move down in the downswing, if your pelvis is moving forward, making you taller, your upper body has to back up to make room through the shot. Otherwise, you've run out of all your room here. You have to stand the body up. So that's where that movement can massively cause early extension. So if you're wondering why you're early extending and you're trying to clear the hips with the right side, this is the reason why. Because like I said, if you're getting that left hip moving back, right hip staying what it is, it gets that upper body, forces it into flexion naturally. And that is the opposite of extension. So then you'll be fixing your early extension, you'll be clearing those hips better. All the good stuff we were saying in the intro, you can see how it's going to happen if you do this properly. So let's get into a drill, but not only one drill, two drills to do. The one you can do at home, one you can do on the range. So let's dive into this drill. This is the drill at home first. You can almost do this as a routine. So what we want to do, we want to get ourselves up to a wall or a net in my case. And what we want to do, we want to stand to the wall where we're really about a hand's distance away from that wall. Now, what I'd want you to do, top of the backswing, turn up, get that right hip to just start to make contact with the wall. Now, I want you to get now in downswing, left hip to touch the wall whilst your right hip is still there in contact with it. So right hip still on the wall, now I want your left hip to touch the wall. So you want to still get your pressure into your left heel in transition, but we want to keep contact with that wall with the right hip whilst we're trying to get it with the left. That's really encouraging you to really massively get those hips staying back whilst you're clearing, whilst you're opening. Really gets you a good feel. I could feel pressure in my left side of my glute doing that, so it's really working hard. So you can imagine doing that a ton at home would be great, but if you've got, let's say, a driving range where you can have in between the bay dividers, do that a little bit, and then feel that same feeling, boom, we'll be able to nicely keep the hips back like we're seeing there, open up that left side, not let the right side move forward. So the next drill out here, I'm actually gonna give you 2 drills. So both achieve the same thing, but you might like one of them more than the other. So they might give you more response. So the first one here, grab a club. Now what I want you to do with this club, put it underneath your heel. So I'm doing it with an old gap wedge here. And I want you now to have the shaft and move the shaft to where it's just about almost touching your left calf. So now, if I set up to a golf ball, set myself up properly, and now what I want to do here, I want to now move in a downswing and hit that club that's behind my left leg with my left calf as soon as I can in the downswing. But I also want to keep this club underneath my right heel until after impact. Because if I move my right hip forward first, I'm immediately going to drop that club underneath the foot. So it's going to keep the right hip back because of what the right hip going forward does to the right foot. But also the goal of me hitting this with my left calf is getting that left side to open up. So it's a very, very, very good drill for this. Targets the faults and it targets what we want to do also. So I really like this. As you can see from that slow-mo, it really gets you open a considerable amount. And as you can see, how much my hips are clearing here, am I even remotely getting stuck? No, something I always hear, like I said, players will be saying, I just rotate my hips way too fast, so I get stuck. We see the players, top players in the world, rotate their hips incredibly fast. Cameron Champ's a good example right here. How fast does he open up those hips? Really fast. Is he getting stuck? No, because he's doing it properly. He's keeping that right hip back, but left hip is going back. So it's not your hips that are getting you stuck, it's how you're opening up and clearing those hips. So as we can see there, gets it working really nice, trying to hit that club, but with your left leg before you get to impact. Brilliant. Let's get to the other drill. So a classic of the channel, because it's so multi-use, multi-purpose, is the chair drill. Now, really important, this one, because you're going to feel the sensation of keeping that right hip back and then moving the left hip back at the same time. So we know, okay, what do we want at the top of the backswing? We want to be able to push this chair back a little bit. So it's, again, so many golfers who will try to clear the hips, maybe they can't, or maybe they get stuck again. It's because they're moving a little bit forward also in that backswing. So where they're getting close to the golf ball, they're moving off a pelvis line. So then you're only going to move forward, your arms are only going to get stuck. So this fixes that issue also. So pushing the chair back with the right hip and then keeping that right hip back, but getting the pressure shifting left and then pushing the chair back with the left hip throughout the entirety of the downswing. This is such a good drill because it trains the entirety of the downswing movement. So here we go. I'm just going to push the chair back with my right hip and then push it back with my left hip. Boom. So really, really good drill. It just fixes so many things. I think this one, if you really give it a good push on both backswing and downswing, that's where amateurs slip up with. They don't push the chair back enough. You're going to be having so many good things come into your swing by doing this properly. So another one. Boom. So you can imagine, if you can do the wall drill, keeping the pelvis back, it's really going to teach you the movement. It's always important to do ones without a ball first to learn the movement and then move into the ball, whether it's the club underneath foot, whether it's a chair drill, and you're going to be doing this way better and you're going to be clearing the hips properly, doing what the 1% golfers do, not what the 99% do. So if you enjoyed the video, click that like button if you want more golf instruction, just like this. Hit the subscribe button and hit that bell button too to be notified every time I put out a video.